First, let's head off to the dollar store to pick up some bowls for the base. Mix the concrete according to the instructions. One thing I forgot to do was spray the inside of the large bowl and the outside of the small bowl with cooking spray to make them easier to remove. Once your bowls are sprayed, place the concrete in the base just until the rim of the small bowl will be level with the rim of the large bowl. Then fill the concrete in around the edges. Tap the outside of the large bowl with a hammer to get all the air bubbles out. Leave to dry for at least 24 hours. Once dry, remove the small bowl from the inside of the large bowl planter. Then remove the outside bowl. This would have been much easier if we had sprayed the bowls with non-stick cooking spray. In the meantime, mix up the fast concrete repair for the small molds. Then spray the small molds with cooking spray or Jigaloo. Wait for the spray to dry and then fill with concrete and set aside. Now let's get to painting. It's a good idea to find inspiration for your fish and starfish. I found this pretty blue fish with pink and white details. I base coated the fish with folk art metallic blue sapphire. Then I lightly painted a watered down metallic magenta pink onto the areas that showed as pink highlights in my inspiration fish. For the starfish, I also found an inspiration blue starfish and base coated it with folk art metallic blue sapphire and set aside to dry. Then I watered down some silver metallic paint and fully covered the blue paint. When it comes to painting the base, you should follow the instructions for concrete curing. Mix up white and tan paint to cover the top edge of the bowl and the full outside. Now it's time to attach the fish and starfish to the bases. Now comes the fun part, styling the bases. First, fill the interior of the base with sand. Then push a hurricane candle holder into the sand and then put a candle inside. Place some shells around the candle for added support. Then place a few pretty shells in the sand. Lastly, set up on a table with shells and other coastal decor. Look how pretty it turned out. I can't wait to show you how beautiful it is in the evening. Wouldn't this make a lovely tablescape to share with friends and family? Head over to your local dollar store and pick up some faux flowers. Ones that have a large bloom on the end are the best. Place your styrofoam ball in the middle of your urn. Then trim your flowers so that the blossoms will just be over the edge of the urn. Now cut all of your flowers stems to that length. Once they're all cut, place the styrofoam ball on a flat surface or in your urn and start making your way around the ball, inserting the flowers on just the top half. As you will see, there seems to be some areas of the styrofoam ball that are harder than others. When you hit these areas, twist the stem around and around, and eventually it will give away and you will be able to press it in. Repeat this whole process for however many flower orbs you wish to make. I made 2, and then I set them out in my greenhouse where I like to relax and plan my garden. Aren't they stunning? This is one of my favorite projects because of how beautiful the end result is. I headed over to my local dollar store and found everything that I needed for the project. The first thing to do is to cover the wreath form with the wide burlap. This is to hide the wreath form. Some people use moss to fill in the gaps, but for this wreath, I wanted to create a vintage French style wreath. Lay the burlap ribbon all along the top of the wreath form and cut a little bit extra so that you aren't short. Flip the wreath form over and carefully glue the burlap to the back of the wreath form. The burlap will also keep the wreath from scratching your door. Next, we're going to prep the pots by poking holes in the bottom of the pots with a pencil. Now we're going to age the pots with paint. This is where the French theme comes in. If you've ever seen some of the vintage pottery from France, it has more of a grayish beige undertone rather than the orangey tones of terracotta. Just mix white acrylic paint with water. You can use a sponge or paper towel, and dab on the watered down paint all the way around the pot, the bottom, and the top edges. Once dry, take the large pot and string twine through the hole in the base and pull a good amount of twine all the way through. For added security, glue the pot to the burlap on the wreath form. Simply pull the twine through the pot and wrap the twine all the way around the wreath. Then take one of the small pots and feed the twine through the hole and glue the pot in place. To make life easier, tape the end of the twine so it will feed through the holes better. Alternate the pots up and down and make your way around the wreath. Here I am attaching the last pot, and it worked out nicely for spacing. Once again, just flip the wreath over, tie the twine in a knot, glue, and trim off the excess. For my flowers, I went with simple white and yellow daisies for spring. Cut pieces of oasis and glue into the pots. Then add your flowers by sticking them into the oasis. I put white daisies in the large pot and also into the 2 small pots on either side of the large pot. Then I put yellow daisies in the next pot. So when it comes to the small pots, I put white daisies in 2 pots, then yellow in 1, and then repeated it all the way around. Here it is, all done. You could add ribbon if you like, but I love the simplicity of leaving it just as it is. So I'm going to take a measurement from the end of this fascia board down to the ground. I headed off to my local dollar store and picked up terracotta pots, and my husband picked up chain for me at the hardware store. The design I opted for was a pot and then 4 wood beads hanging below. To prepare the wires for the beads, use a pair of needle nose pliers and create a little circle. The chain is going to loop through the circle, so don't make it too tight. How you are going to determine the spacing is you're going to take the distance of where you want the rain chain to start all the way to the ground. You will have to determine how far into the pot you want them to connect and add that extra distance to come up with the amount of chain you will need. It's time for assembly. Take 1 piece of wire and put the smallest bead on first, not the largest like I started to do. Then add the other beads. Next, put the wire through the bottom of the pot and bend it over slightly. Add a piece of chain and secure the wire so the chain won't slip off. Repeat until you have all the pots in place. Now it's time to hang your rain chains. They look so cute and add so much charm to my greenhouse. Look at that, they are working perfectly, and listen to how nice they sound. A mop head. I was positive I could make something great with this. First, you will need to dismantle the mop head. The pieces of mop are already cut into equal-sized lengths. If you choose to paint the mop head materials, make sure to first base coat the foam circle in the same color that you will be painting the fabric, so that the foam does not show through. Take a piece of the mop and loop it in half. Wrap it around the foam circle and pull the ends through the looped end. Pull tight. Then press the looped area down so that the looped end rests on your counter. Repeat all the way around the foam circle until you have it all filled in. Next, it's time to stiffen the mop strands so that they will stand out straight from the foam circle. And for this, you will need a lot of Mod Podge. Test and make sure that the strands are completely dry and stiff. If some are not stiff, recoat and once again leave to dry. Now comes the fun part. I played around with many different alternatives. I felt it needed one more thing, so I added a round mirror behind the mop wreath with hot glue. Adding a mirror to wreaths always makes it more interesting, as you will see reflections in it once it is hung. To decorate the wreath, I created a simple bow with the floral burlap ribbon and glued it on the front. Look how pretty it looks on the French door to my cute little greenhouse. Adding the mirror is perfect because look how it captures beautiful reflections like my colorful basket hanging nearby. If neutral isn't your thing, then here is another option. Using a sponge brush, coat all the sides of the mop strands with paint. As it was the end of summer and the beginning of fall, I decided a nice yellow and orange color scheme would be appropriate. Painting it like the sun with the lightest yellow color in the center and a soft peachy orange color in the middle of the strands, and then a deep orange on the outer tips. Like working with Mod Podge, you need to thoroughly coat all sides of the mop material with paint, or the white foam will show through and spoil the effect. It is pretty cute and cheery whether on my greenhouse door or my garden gates. I'm sure it'll bring a smile to your face. This is a beginner, non-sewer type of project. So first, I headed out to my local fabric store, picked out some pretty fabric and an Ultra Bond adhesive. The first thing I did was measure my window. I tackled the 2 straps for this project first. You can make them as long as you like, but I opted for 22 inches, so cut 2 strips 2 inches wide and 44 inches long. Then iron these strips in half. Next, fold the edges in and iron again. Make sure that the end width of your strap is at least as wide as your adhesive. Place the adhesive face down or paper side up in place and then iron for 1 to 2 seconds. Next, measure out your curtain by leaving an extra ½ inch on all sides. Start with the side seams and fold the fabric over ½ inch and press until nicely folded down. Then measure out your adhesive, cut to size, and place the adhesive side down. Iron into place and let cool. Then fold the fabric over and iron again until firmly attached. Repeat by doing the other side seam. Next, we're going to be making the pocket to hold the top dowel. Flip the top piece of fabric up and over. Then simply place the adhesive 2 inches down from the top seam and iron into place. Once cool, remove the paper backing, flip the top portion of the fabric down so that it is nice and smooth, and iron until adhered. We will be attaching the strapping we made earlier to this area. Also place a small piece of adhesive tape on the middle of the strap and iron into place. Repeat for the other strap. Once cool, remove the paper backing, attach the strap, and iron until adhered. Attach 2 command hooks above your window or on the molding an inch or 2 in from the edge. Place the top dowel on the command hook on either side. Then roll the bottom dowel up to your desired height and tie the straps. Look how pretty it turned out. For our non-fussy bathroom, this was the perfect curtain to add interest but not go against the design style. The first step is to take out all of the cardboard in both of the frames along with the back stands. You'll only need one of the frames, but 2 pieces of glass. The next step is to print off your design and make sure it fits nicely within your frame. Place the reverse image under the glass centered as you would like it to appear once it is framed, and then trace the image onto the glass with a permanent marker. Then turn that piece over so that you are working on the side that does not have the gold marker on it. When it comes to the dried flowers, I used some that I had dried myself, but I also purchased a whole selection of pressed flowers from Amazon, and they were really great to work with. Select the pressed flowers you think are most appropriate for the design and trim off any unwanted pieces like stems and leaves. Prepare a bunch of different sizes and shapes so that you can fit them in where necessary. This project is like doing a puzzle. I even dismantled a daisy so that I could have thin, narrow petals for the hem of the dress and the edges of the dress. I also chose fluffier ivory-colored stalks. Stalks are a type of fragrant flower, somewhat like a snapdragon, and I used those to fill in the inside of the bottom portion of the dress. For the bodice, I went with pressed baby's breath as I felt it was the perfect texture for the bodice. It was easy to cut and trim for this narrow portion of the design. As you will see, I used a toothpick dipped in the liquid glue as I did not want it running past the edge of the design, nor did I want it to dry before I got to that area with the flowers. For the bouquet, I found a small pressed flower blossom that looked just like a bouquet. I trimmed some excess greenery and placed it close to her body to look like she was holding it. The veil, I have to say, was my favorite part of this project. When I was unpacking the pressed flowers, I found these small flowers on long stems that curve so gracefully. I knew they would be perfect to represent a flowy veil. It was important for the veil to be delicate and have life, so removing those gold lines was a good decision. Otherwise, it would have looked bulky and messy. Look how wonderful it turned out. What a special gift this would be to give to a new bride or to a friend on her anniversary. Today I have the perfect project. I purchased some of the seashells and they were perfectly clean, but I also had some shells that I collected on various vacations. They needed a bit of cleaning, so there is a simple way of doing that, and that is to place them in a bowl and pour peroxide over them. Look how clean they got. So while your shells are soaking, take your old candles and put them in the freezer. I left mine in overnight. Then simply flip them over and tap on the glass. I have to admit I was skeptical that this would work, but look how easy they came out. It is amazing. Now remove the old wicks and break the wax into pieces. Place the pieces in your wax melter and stir occasionally until melted. If you can, fill a large dough bowl or tray with sand so that you can hold the shells level. Before pouring the wax in, place an adhesive circle on the lowest part of your shell and then attach the wick. Now slowly pour the wax in. If you wish to add things like the crushed glass or the starfish, wait about 20 minutes until the wax is starting to set, or else your decorative pieces will sink to the bottom. Another thing you can do is to dye the wax. This is simple, and all you need to add is a little mica dye to the wax when the wax is melting. A little goes a long way. If you have any wax left over, you could always make a new candle in one of your old glass containers. Simply clean them out, add the wick, and pour the rest of the wax in. Another option is to paint the interior of the shells gold. I started by just doing the edges, but then painted the full interior gold because I wanted the shells to look good as the candle melted. Let the paint completely dry before adding the wax. The last thing to do before displaying is to cut the wicks to about 1/2 inch tall. Now set them out on your table, entry table, side table, or bookshelves and enjoy. Are you like me and have a guest bedroom with a comfy bed but no headboard? It popped into my mind that a floral runner rug I had would make a perfect king headboard. All you need for this project is the rug, a 1x2 piece of wood that is 2 inches shorter than the length of the rug. Then line the piece of wood up under the rug. Now carefully pull back the rug and glue it along the bottom edge of the wood. Do not put the glue at the top because then it will make it hard to attach it to the wall. Once dry and adhered well, it is time to attach it to the wall. Attach one side by screwing through the wood and into the wall. Voila! Instant headboard. You could also use a seagrass runner or a tapestry as the headboard. Just pick whatever would work well with your style of bedroom and the linens you have. The space is a good medium size, but I did not like the gold writing on it. Pour the vinegar in a bowl so that you can get the vase completely wet where the writing is. Then take the razor and scrape off the lettering. Look how easy the writing is coming off. Next up, let me show you how to take those ugly black marks off of your plates. Wet down your plates with water and then pour on some Barkeeper's Friend and scrub with a cloth. I applied too little to begin with, so I added some more and then voila, I saw the magic beginning to happen. The marks came off quite easily. Simply wash under water and then wash normally and dry. Look, they look like they're brand new. I'm so impressed. Last step is reviving silver-plated pieces. First, start boiling your water. While it's warming up, line your dish with tin foil, shiny side up. The recipe for the mixture is for every 2 cups of boiling water, you will need 2 tablespoons of baking soda and 2 tablespoons of salt. Keep adding until your piece is submerged. It is essential that your silver-plated piece make direct contact with the tin foil. Leave for about 30 minutes. For mine, I had to turn one of my pieces over because some of the tarnish did not come off of the bottom. Lastly, take a brush and rub it into all the areas and remove any left on tarnish. Rinse, then wash and dry well. Look what a difference it made. This silver was almost black in areas and now it is a light shiny silver. I headed over to my local dollar store and I found 3 medium drawer organizers and 3 5x7 frames that fit perfectly over the boxes. First, take the frames out of their packaging and remove the glass and backing. Cut out your scrapbook paper to cover the back of the drawer organizer, so you'll need to measure it and cut it out perfectly. Once you know it fits, properly glue the paper on with a glue stick. Now we will paint the frames. If your frames have a finish on them, give them a light sand. The green I'm using is pistachio green. Paint one side and set to dry, then paint the other side. The green I chose was a little too bright green, so I did a whitewash over it to tone it down a bit. The whitewash is achieved by mixing white acrylic paint with a bit of water and painting over top so that the underneath color shows through. Once dry, you can attach the frame to the box with hot glue and leave it until it's also fully dried and adhered. I wanted to spice these shelves up a bit, so I added on some small stems of faux purple flowers and a white rose in the corners of the 2 upright shelves. When it comes to hanging, my desk organizers had an indent on the back, so I could just hang them on nails. Look how lovely they turned out. So next up, hang them in your favorite place, fill them with your own precious items, and enjoy. Head over to your local dollar store or garden center and pick up 2 pots. Keep in mind they need to fit inside each other. Start by gluing the battery packet of the twinkle lights to the inside of the larger pot. Now make your way around the pot gluing the twinkle lights on. I wanted a random pattern like the stars in the skies, So I glued them on here and there rather than in straight lines. Continue gluing until you have the whole pot covered on the inside. Repeat on your next pot. Then simply put your smaller pots inside the large lit pots and enjoy. You could use them at a front entrance, on a deck, on an outside table, etc. I have been seeing all these cute projects using terracotta pots, so I headed over to my local dollar store and picked up a few. Place the 4 small pots like paws and legs, and then place the medium pot on top as the body of the dog. Next, place the other medium pot on top of the body of the dog. This pot will be the face of the dog. Use a large clamp to hold the pots in place until the glue dries. Something to do while the glue dries is to choose a color scheme for your dog. I have chosen to replicate my own little dog named Mia. It is really good to have a photo of the dog you want to replicate so that you can copy their color patterns. Once the glue is dry, base coat the pots in the colors that you want the dog to be. Next, draw in the shape of the eye, the nose, and the mouth, and then paint with appropriate colors. Mia has brown eyes. I know they look black in the photo, but they are brown, so I painted them brown. Her nose is a dark gray, so I based it in a gray that is a little bit lighter, but I can add all the dark details later and then they'll show up. With small strokes with a very fine paintbrush, paint in the fur of your dog. Our Mia has black, brown, gray, and tan pieces of fur. I like to start with the darkest colors and then layer up to the lightest. Oh boy, did I ever learn a big lesson here. Well, I wanted to replicate Mia according to her coloring. Now I've learned that an all-black dog is really hard to paint because all the details blend together. Partway through this process, I decided to start again and go back to the colors she appears in this photo. I wanted to share this with you so that you will all be okay with changing your plans partway through a project. Sometimes even the best planned out projects need to change, and this was one of them. To do the details of the eyes, I started with regular size pupils. However, they seemed a bit odd and not friendly. I looked at cartoon dogs and the pupils are always very large. It's up to you how you want to do your dog, but I went with the large pupils. I also added eyelashes. While Mia's eyelashes are hard to see, she does have lovely long eyelashes. To bring it to life, add a white glint in the upper right portion of each eye. Now it is time for the ears and tail. I decided to make both out of foam. I was going to add yarn, but it looked like it was just going to look messy, so I stuck with simple foam instead. Also, simple foam will weather better if I leave this outside. Take a look at dogs' tails and decide on one you like. Mia's tail is kind of fluffy, but goes around in a circle and lands on her back. I decided to make it a bit thicker, so I traced and cut out 3 layers of foam for the tail. Cut slits into the fluffy side, then fan the 2 outside layers out so that the tail becomes fluffy. Now attach the tail to the pots with glue. I think she turned out pretty cute, and I hope you enjoyed this project. Now it's the time for the test. Will Mia think it's real? Let's put it in the garden and see. Yes, I would say that is a resounding yes that Mia thought she was real. For these projects, either go to a thrift store or check your storage room, as you will need teacups and also a lid with a finial or handle on top. First, take a wick and attach it to a round sticker and stick to the bottom of the teacup. Place a popsicle stick with a hole in it on the top rim of the teacup and have the wick coming through the hole. Scoop 1 3/4 teacups full of wax and place in a pot. Heat the wax until it reaches a temperature between 158 and 176 degrees Fahrenheit. Prior to putting the wax in the teacup, heat the teacup up with boiling water. Now pour the hot wax in. Place a few sprigs of lavender on top or other dried flowers. It will take about 2 to 3 hours to set up. Simply wind the wire around the finial and then pull straight. Wrap the other end around a pen tightly by making several loops. Now insert a photo in between the loops and place in a favorite spot to enjoy. Flip the teacup upside down. Use E6000 glue and place a thin line of it on the bottom of the teacup. Place the saucer on top and make sure it is centered. This project can be used as a holder for sweets, as a jewelry holder, or you could even put a candle on it and use it as a candle holder. Look how beautiful all of these look together. They would be great decor pieces for a desk, shelf, or entry table.